What is up, dudes and lady dudes? Welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today, I'm doing a little video talking about Simorghs and actually how, I want to say low-key, but not even low-key, they're really getting a buff with this new Simorgh Link monster. If you don't know, like at the beginning of this past weekend, we got a bunch of Link Brains pack Link monsters revealed, one of which was a Simorgh Link 3. This card's very, very strong, and I think when I read it, I was like, okay, but Simorghs need help, like a lot of help. But I really think this card does more than I gave it credit for in my first analysis of this. I think it's really, really good, and today I'm going to go a little more in depth instead of just reading the effects going, that's a good card, but actually talking how it's a good card, how it actually helps the archetype, and actually could help some other archetypes as well. But specifically, we're going to be focusing on Simorghs today. So, if you didn't see that video, let's quickly go over Simorgh, Bird of Kings, to start and what he does. He is a Link 3 wind effect wing beast monster with 2400 attack. His link arrows point down, down left, and down right. So pretty much as perfect as you can get as a Link 3 that you want to put in the extra monster zone, getting you 3 whole zones open. And his link materials are 2+ monsters, as long as one of them is a winged beast monster. So pretty generic as well, and also opens the gate for just like generic cards that can help you get into this guy. I mean, something as generic as the Sky Striker package, right? You just go Hornet Drones for Kagari add back Hornet Drones. There's 2 monsters, normal summon a winged beast, boom, you've got him with 2 cards in hand. And then he does the rest by himself, more or less. So like it really opens the gate for other cards to be used just to turbo him out, because that's really what I think the deck may become. You just want to revolve around getting into him and just letting him deal with your opponent's stuff. Yeah, and he cannot be used as link material, so you can't use him to link up, which makes sense, I guess. So you don't really want to anyway. Anyway, for his effects, the first effect says this card also. Any winged beast monster it points to cannot be targeted by your opponent's card effects. Second effect, if this card would be destroyed by battle, you can destroy one Simorgh card you control instead. Keyword, that's card, so if you have the field spell in the field zone, you can also send that as well to protect him, which is pretty good. And the third effect, during the end phase, you can special summon from your hand or deck one winged beast monster whose level is equal to or lower than the number of unoccupied spell and trap zones on the field. Keywords, on the field, not your opponent's field, on the field. If you are going first and you have not put anything in your spell and trap zones, or even 2 things in your spell and trap zones, you'll be able to special summon any level 8 or lower winged beast straight from the deck. No other restrictions. Very, very powerful. There, and even if your opponent is playing a back row deck, you still have the possibility of just special summoning. Maybe it doesn't have to be one of your big boys, but some of the other ones can still get it done. So I don't think I really need to explain why special summoning winged beast out of the deck. Obviously, it'd be more powerful if it was during your main phase, so you could be a little more proactive on the turn, but still this deck has some powerful boss monsters that you can go into, and yeah, we'll be talking about that here. So as far as what Simorghs have now, that, whoops, there we go, that like before, like kind of setting up for this Link monster, we've got a couple cards. So they got a whole new wave of support in, what set was that? Was that Rising Rampage? I can't remember. What is it? Yeah, it is Rising Rampage. Anyway, we got a couple of the smaller ones. So Simorgh, Bird of Beginning. This card pretty much gives you an additional normal summon of a Simorgh monster. Simorgh, Bird of Bringing. This one is pretty much your Stratos. When it's normal summoned, it'll search any Simorgh card from deck to hand. It's very, very nice. Calamity on normal summon will let you Foolish Burial any Simorgh card from your deck to the graveyard. And then Bird of Protection on normal summon lets you target and bounce a card in your opponent's spell or trap zone. Not the best, but when you look at their other effects, that effect actually becomes a little bit better, because they all have a secondary effect where if they are in your graveyard and your opponent has no cards in their spell and trap zones, you can just special summon them back from the graveyard. The next time they leave the field, they will be banished, so keep that in mind. You need to really make good on the way you're using them to link climb or however you're using them. But yeah, it's really nice because like you just like, you know what I mean, like normal summon him, extra normal summon another one, link them off for a link 2, revive one or both of them, and then you can just make the link 3. He's super easy to make now in the deck. Super, super easy. That's not a joke. So I really, really like that, and it's just super easy to get into the link 3. and there. So even though this one is like kind of better just because it still has that effect. Like if you can just link it off and then you're just going to get it back for free. Like it's 2 link materials at the very least, which is very, very good. Next up, we have some older boss monsters that are still relevant today, and Dark Simorgh is one of them. This card had its heyday. Not anymore, but you can banish a dark and a wind monster from your hand to special summon it from the graveyard. Whatever. While it's on the field, it's wind, and it's also wind as well as a dark attribute. And you can banish a dark and wind from your graveyard to special summon this card from your hand. So it kind of gets itself on the field in other ways. There are other ways to get it out, but those can come up. They usually won't, but they can. And then the main thing you really play this card is for that last sentence. Your opponent cannot set any cards on the field. They can't set monsters. They can't set spells or traps. And depending on the deck you're playing against, if you set him up turn 1, your opponent has just lost the duel, effectively. Like, if you're playing Altergeist and you summon Dark... If you go just Dark Simorgh past turn 1, there's a decent chance, if they don't draw Meluseek, they're just like, they just lost. Like the duel's already over for them because they play like 30 traps, right? So very, very powerful card in certain matchups. Not great against everything. Going second, not great. But he does have his prime time where he really can just win you a duel by himself. Then there's a card like Simorgh Bird of Ancestry. Sorry. But if you tribute summon this card using only wind monsters, you can return up to 2 cards your opponent controls to their owner's hands. Now, keep in mind this, I believe, doesn't target. I don't think this has been reprinted with like updated text, so I don't think this targets. Just bounces 2 cards. And if you don't know, this deck has multiple ways to get additional normal summons and additional tribute summons to get out these cards. So that's actually not super hard to do. I know you think like, oh, it's 2019. Tribute summoning for a level 8, that's awful. Why would you ever play that? But it actually is super doable in this deck. They have a lot of effects to help them do that easily, and then just that removal can be pretty strong. Whereas Dark Simorgh is very good going first. Simorgh Bird of Ancestry can be a very powerful play going second to just plow through a board. And then we have 2 new ones. So these ones are more based on setting up disruptions instead of like a floodgate like Dark Simorgh. So this one's main thing is that like when a spell or trap is activated, period, you can quick effect tribute a wing beast monster you control, then target a card your opponent controls and shuffle it into the deck. Not the best disruption, but you can do this in the as a follow-up to your own spell and trap activation. So like you can kind of set it up yourself. It's not fully reliant on your opponent. But he's like, okay, like that's what I do. And then Simorgh of Darkness is the other one. When a spell or trap card is activated, tribute a wing beast monster to negate the activation if you do destroy that card. So this one, a little more better. I think like Lord can be good in specific situations, but it's easier to play around. Whereas Simorgh of Darkness just straight up negates the spell or trap. So I like this one a little more. And the problem was before you had to play these cards in multiples because you just wanted to see them so that you could just get them out, and that was the whole goal. You were just trying to end on one or both of these, or with like Dark Simorgh going first and like just kind of like set up a couple disruptions and a floodgate, and hopefully your opponent can't do much through that. But unfortunately, it just wasn't enough. It didn't consistently do it well, like often enough, and it just, even when you did, like it's still, any meta deck can pretty much break through these boards without too much hassle. There's a couple other spell cards I want to note here. Elborz is the field spell, boosts all wing beast 300, whatever. You can reveal level 5 or higher wing beast in your hand in this turn. You can normal summon wing beast monsters for less than 1, or for 1 less tribute this turn, which is really awesome because there are other cards that lower their levels, so you could literally lower the level to 6, and then this card makes them so they take 1 less tribute, which means they take no tribute, and you can just like additional normal summon them out for free. Which the last effect of this card actually says, if you control a wing beast monster, you can immediately after this card resolves normal summon a wing beast monster. There you go. And so like they're super easy to get out the big ones if you have these other assistance cards there. And this card's really, really nice. And like I said with the Link monster, this is also another card that you can use to protect it from battle. As well, which is really nice. And then some more Onslaught. This card's really good to turbo into certain stuff. You just discard a wing beast as cost to add 2 Simorgh monsters with different attributes from your deck to your hand. You more to keep in mind its attributes, so you're either adding like Dark Simorgh or Simorgh of Darkness, and then any of the other wind ones. So it's a little selective that it has to be Dark Simorgh or Simorgh of Darkness, but then the other one you get to pick. So it is really good for consistency as well as that, and it sucks to get ashed on it, but if you discard one of the babies can just special themselves back after like you get ashed, so you don't lose full value on it. And then another card that's very, very important to note. This card will be very important, I believe, if this deck is to do anything competitively. Barrier Statue of the Stormwinds. This card is insane. It's a very old card. All it says is no monsters can be special summoned except for wind monsters. Now, I know that doesn't sound too crazy, but it is. I mean, it sounds crazy to me, but if it doesn't sound crazy to you, I'm just telling you, it is. Even though it's only 1,000, it's fairly easy to beat over. All that means is you may just need to play some cards that are... All it means is that, like, worst case scenario for you, your opponent just, like, has to waste their battle phase just to get this card off the field. And then even if they're able to pop off, they're popping off in main phase too. And if they weren't popping off in a way that could put up, like, a bunch of removal effects, you're just going to, like, still keep all your cards on the field. And on your opponent's end phase, your new Link monster is going to special again, straight from the deck. Right? He's just going to trigger again a special immediately straight from the deck on their end phase, and then you're just going to make a push back on them, even though they popped off after that. So this card's very, very strong. Even though it is possible to break through, it's going to force them to break through it in an awkward way that they don't prefer. And then they're just going to be duels where they can't. Even if they can summon something bigger than this, maybe you just play, like, Compulsory Evacuation Device, some traps like that, some cards like that that can really just, you know, that are meant to just protect this card. And if you protect this card, you're just going to win. You're just going to win on the next turn, straight up, just from playing Beatdown. So just a one-of, just a card that on your end phase, you just special it from deck, and your opponent's like, oh, I can't special summon because I don't play any wins, because no deck plays any wins at the moment. So just really interesting there. And then the last card I want to note here is Harpy's Feather Storm. It's a very powerful card that it's generic Wing Beast support, because it says if you control a Wing Beast until the end of the turn, negate any monster effects your opponent activates. That's any monster effect your opponent activates for the rest of the turn. So your opponent just essentially just has no monster effects that can be activated. And so this is just like the strongest card. You can't use the hand trap effect because you won't control. Well, I guess you could technically play Harpy Conductor and then use this as the turn without even having to set this card. You can just activate it from hand. And the deck can make Harpy Conductor fairly generically, but I don't expect to do that very often. But that's interesting, and it's really strong. This is just, like, insane. Like, most decks just pass to this by itself. So that's everything I want to note as far as the cards we already have. They had a catalyst, like, they had a nice shell of the stuff that you would want to, like, set yourself up for, like, success. Like, we have a nice extender, get an extra normal summon. We have a card that just searches every card in the archetype. Awesome. Foolish Burial, any card in the archetype. Bounce a back row, and they're all just get double summoned essentially, so that's really good. And then you got multiple boss monsters, all have their benefits. Obviously none of them are perfect, but they all do something very well. Nice extending cards, a search card. You've got to just lock your opponent out of the, like, extra deck essentially, or just special summoning period. And then you have a card that says no monster effects. So what they had was a nice shell for everything, but they couldn't do it consistently enough. And now that they have this guy, they don't have to rely on that as much, because getting into this guy is pretty freaking easy in this deck. Any two of the little guys in hand, not any two, but a lot of combinations of two will get that done, which is really, really nice. And yeah, I don't know. I just think don't sleep on this deck, because I would not be surprised if this deck is, like, topping regionals when this card comes out. We have no idea when it's coming out, so obviously this is a little bit premature, but I've been really looking at this deck a little more introspective. I ordered all the cards. By the way, if this is something you're interested in, this deck is so goddamn cheap. Like, the most expensive thing may be, like, Harpy's Feather Storm, and that card's been printed multiple times. I think it's, like, not even $2. So, like, that's the most expensive card, and everything else is, like, either common, rare, or just, like, super cheap. So you don't have to worry about that at all. And this card just, like, it just gets... The deck really struggled with getting to its win conditions, reliably putting out those big monsters. This guy not only can do that, but he can do that in a more versatile way. You could just special summon... If you're going into your next turn, you could just special summon either one of the big boys, or you could just special summon one of the small guys, and then they're just going to be extra link material. As long as you're able to keep your opponent's spell and trap zones clear, you're just going to be he's going to be 2 link materials. And then you just extend into link place on the next turn, and just keep popping off nonstop, right? So I think this card's just awesome. And there are a couple other decks this card can be abused in. We'll see there's like possibilities with it being good with like Raid Raptors, Black Wings, Harpies. Those are the three main ones. There may be some other ones in there. Apex Avian's another card that's interesting with this because he just specials it straight from deck, and Avian just negates any card, which is pretty good. If you haven't heard, negating any card's pretty good. But yeah, that's pretty much it. For this video at least. I just wanted to go through and I want to just talk about this card. I really think this deck could be a legit, like, I'm not 100% on this, but I think there's a possibility it could be a tier 2 deck if it's able to work consistently enough, which I think it has a chance of doing, but we'll have to wait and see. Until then, guys, let me know your thoughts down below. If you think I'm a little bit too excited on this, a little too hype on this, let me know. If you think I'm even underselling it, let me know. Obviously, I'm not a Simorgh savant up until this point. I've looked at them here and there, but I haven't gone fully in, and I'm gonna go fully in when this card comes out. I'm gonna build a deck for sure. I'm gonna make a deck profile for sure, and I'm just really excited. So let me know your guys' thoughts down below. Thank you so much for watching this video. As always, I will catch you in the next one, and peace.